Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'll start by introducing the committee members and staff. I'm the committee chair. My name is Grace Marsh, and the remaining members here with me tonight are Tom Plamondon, the vice chair, and David Mango. The secretary-treasurer with us tonight is Justin Leung, entering the room there. Our planner tonight is Marty Rokos, and the council committee secretary is the town clerk, Michael Durand. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the desk up in the front here. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions of tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form. The owners of the property and the agents will automatically be notified. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the application, and then the applicant or agent will be given an opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information we've received. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. These members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address, as well as sign the corresponding request for notice form on the table at the front. After completing the form, please hand it to Justin, the secretary-treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentations will be made. Please ensure that all your questions and/or comments are directed through me as the chair, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond to any questions or comments should the committee feel that's appropriate. So we'll get going with tonight's meeting, and I'll ask the committee if there's any declarations of pecuniary interest. None. Thank you. Seeing none, I'll ask for an approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Second. All in favor? That carries. Confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting, please. A mover and seconder?
I move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? We are short 2 committee members tonight. There's generally 5 of us. Unfortunately, one has left the committee and the other one is attending a family funeral, but 3 is quorum, so we can proceed with your applications. All right. So the first application before us tonight is minor variance application, MBH Aurora Lodging GP Limited, Eric T. Smith Way and Goulding Avenue, application 2017-22A through C. Application MV 2017-22A. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended, respecting to reduce the minimum required landscaping for front lots onto non-arterial roads to facilitate the development of a hotel. The property in question is in a business park exception zone specific BP-4I zone. Section 27.D.8.2.3 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 3 meters landscaping strip for lots fronting on roads other than arterial roads and/or open roads. The applicant is proposing a minimum of 2 meters landscaping, thus requiring a variance of 1 meter. Application 2017-22B is seeking relief from the same bylaw, respecting to increase maximum floor area ratio to facilitate development of a hotel. Section 27.D.8.2.4 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum floor area ratio of 50%. The applicant is proposing floor area ratio of 60%, requiring a variance of 10%. And 2017-22C, seeking relief from the same bylaw, respecting to allow a reduction in the required parking spaces to facilitate development of a hotel. Section 27.d.8.2.6 of the zoning bylaw requires 1 parking space per room plus 10 spaces per 100 square meters devoted to public uses for the proposed hotel use. 153 parking spaces required. The applicant is proposing a variance to the required parking rate for the uses proposed to allow 100 parking spaces, thus requiring a variance of 53. Please note the subject property also has an associated application for site plan approval, file number 2017-02. Do we have the applicant or the agent in the room? Hi. Would you like to come forward and make any kind of a presentation or let the committee know anything? Okay, so you're good? All right. Then I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to come forward for this application. Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll look to the committee for any comments. You may be called to answer committee questions. David, go ahead, please.
Through the chair, this is actually a question to the staff. This is related to application MV 2017-22A. In the report, in the staff report, it says that the Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services, they're actually reviewing the landscape plan, which is through the site plan submission. Do we know the position of the Parks Department at all? Or is it irrelevant at all? Because we know that they're reviewing, but we don't know what their position is.
Marty?
Through the chair, the site plan is being reviewed by all the departments, including the Parks Department, and just looking at their comments on the report here, the Parks and Recreation Services don't have any objections or concerns with this minor variance application. And from what I heard from Fausto, who's the planner on this file, they're generally satisfied with the layout of the site plan and the landscaping.
Thank you. Actually, that was my miss, and I do apologize for that. We usually do let the public know that Planning Services had no objections, Building had no comments, Infrastructure and Environmental had no objections, Parks, Rec and Culture had no comments, Central York no objections, Electric Utilities no objections, York Region no objections, and the Transportation Analyst with IES had no concerns. So generally we read that out, and I apologize for not doing that. Any other questions, David?
No, I'm okay.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you through the chair to the applicant. You'll notice in the notes, I don't know if you've seen the notes, but we recently approved the reduction of parking for another hotel, which is proposed to be built in Aurora. My concern at the time centered around whether or not, number one, and I couldn't tell from the sketches that we received, they're kind of a little bit fuzzy, but on the ground floor, I noticed that there are some amenities. And my question to you, number one, is would you be hosting any outside activities, meetings, receptions of that, anything of that nature at the site?
You'll need to come forward, please, and use the microphone and give us your name when you start, please.
My name is Genoa Young. I'm project coordinator for Gee Company. We're handling project management, general construction. In regard to your question, it is my understanding that the facility is to be used for guests of the hotel, and that the associated parking is also limited to registered guests of the hotel.
So if I was to come in, I'm not a hotel guest, and ask to host a meeting there, what would your answer be? I don't know if you know what I'm getting at. What often happens, and again, because you can't really see a lot of detail on the package that we received on the ground floor, you've got to have maybe a coffee shop, I don't know, or some facility along those lines. What happens is when you hit ratios, parking ratios, where you're almost one parking spot per room, and let's say you're operating it, it's a very busy weekend, and Aurora tends to get busy on weekends with sports and what have you. I'm sure you probably know that, otherwise you wouldn't be building this. But and someone will come along and say, listen, I've got a family celebration, 20 people, can we host it at the hotel? So then you get 95 people coming in with their car, staying at the hotel, and then you get another 20 cars coming, and they've got no place to park. And I'm wondering if those are concerns. There were, it'd be a concern that I would have. So I don't know how you would address that.
Well, there was a market study done based on hotel occupancy rates. The market study was included as part of the application, which I believe clearly identified that the projected occupancy rates would be in line with the parking variance request.
Okay. Any idea how many staff? What would be the maximum number of staff on site?
I could not say at this time.
So if we were looking at 20 staff driving themselves to that facility, there's 20 spaces gone. That might be, or might not be the case. But you don't know that.
I'm sorry, I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? All right. Then I will look to the committee for a motion and any further committee discussion.
Through the chair, I propose that the three applications be approved without any comments, any conditions in the staff's report.
Do I have a seconder? Okay. Any further comments or questions? All right. All in favor? That carries. Okay, the next application is minor variance application 1730981 Ontario Limited, right? I haven't gone out of order here, have I? Nope. 15132 and 15136 Yonge Street. The purpose of application MV 2017-23A, the applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended, respecting to allow a parking area in environmental protection zone area to facilitate a 3-story mixed-use development. The property in question is in a central commercial C2 zone and environmental protection EP zone. Section 30.1 of the zoning bylaw does not allow environmental protection zone lands for use as a parking area. The applicant is proposing a parking area at the rear of the property within an environmental protection zone, thus requiring relief from the provision of the bylaw. Application 2017-23B is seeking relief from the same zoning bylaw to allow an increase in allowable floor area for the residential portion of a non-residential building in a commercial zone to facilitate the three-story mixed-use development. Section 6.13.6 of the zoning bylaw states that the residential portion of a non-residential building in a commercial zone shall not exceed 50% of the floor area. The applicant is proposing a three-story building with 56% residential floor, thus requiring a variance of 6%. Application 2017-23C is seeking relief from the same bylaw respecting to allow a reduction in required parking to facilitate the three-story mixed-use development. Section 6.26 requires 1.5 spaces for each dwelling unit in the building containing both commercial and residential uses. A minimum of 20% of spaces provided shall be set aside as visitors parking, and 4.5 spaces for each 100 square meters of commercial floor area for individual retail uses within the central business district, whose gross leasable floor area does not exceed 300 square meters. 46 parking spaces required. The applicant is proposing a variance to the required parking rate for the uses proposed to allow 25 parking spaces, thus requiring a variance of 21. And 2017-23D is relief from the same bylaw respecting to allow the elimination of required landscape buffer strip along the rear property line to facilitate the three-story mixed-use development. The section 6.31 of the zoning bylaw requires a landscape buffer strip to be located along the entire length of the property line where adjacent to any residential use. The applicant does not propose a buffer strip along the rear property line, which is adjacent to residential use, thus requiring relief from this bylaw. Planning Services, no objections. Building Services, no comments. Infrastructure and Environmental, no concerns. Parks, Rec and Culture, no comments. Central York Fire, Electric Utilities, and York Region had no objections. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority had no objections but do have a condition, and Heritage Planning, Planning and Building Services had no comments. Do we have an applicant or agent for this application? Thank you. Would you like to come forward? Is there anything you would like to speak to us about, present to us?
Thank you for the opportunity. Quickly, not only is this project very important to myself, obviously. Oh, my name is Joe Cara. I am the developer of this project. As I was saying, not only is this development important to myself, but it's also important to the revitalization for the downtown core of Aurora. At any time, if there's any objections, I will be fully prepared to answer any questions if you so require. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to us on this application? Please come forward one at a time. Full name, address.
Everybody's nervous. Nobody wants to go first.
And I will ask that if there's a number of you to speak, please try not to repeat the person ahead of you. That doesn't necessarily give it more weight with us, but we'd like to hear all of the different concerns that you may have. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Judy Sherman. I'm at 89 Temperance Street. So the back of my property backs onto the parking lots from Yonge Street. Okay. I just wrote a little something out. I'm a little nervous, but I've written out, I've lived here for 19 years, and due to the increase of concrete from urban growth in Aurora, the creek floods more and more each year. When I moved here, it was all green space along the creek, and now it's mainly parking lots. With this proposal to add another parking lot along the required landscape buffer strip, I can only imagine how much more flooding there will be. Wasn't the area designated environmentally protected for a reason? Why don't we just start breaking all the rules and drive through some red lights when we feel like it? It doesn't matter if there's a couple of accidents every once in a while and a few people may be injured or killed. I know that the vision of the town council and the town is the revitalization and growth of the downtown core. It is important to attract and support new and existing businesses along Yonge Street, but not at the expense of the environment and current residents. It seems to be the same argument over and over again. The businesses are supported and the residents are secondary. I've got a few photos here from the flooding.
That's excellent, thank you. The clerk, if you hand them to the clerk, he'll put them up so that we all can see them. And
I'm just getting new glasses, so it's hard
okay,
to see what's going on. Okay, so this is the back of my property. This was a couple of years ago after some flooding. You can see the parking lot, which is behind the dentist, which is beside the property that wants to put more parking in on their side. So all the trees that had to come down, that came down during the rain, and they all had to be cut and taken down because of the flooding. The next one. So this is behind me, 89 Temperance. This is me this year with all the flooding, and across the creek now, there's no trees anymore. All the trees are gone now. They all fell down because of the flooding and the parking lot, the water running down from the parking lot into the creek. What else I find in the creek, because I tend to go down every year, the contaminants and garbage from the cars and the oil and the people just littering things in those parking lots is just atrocious, absolutely atrocious. This is my neighbor at 87 Temperance. This is what happens to their backyard now when there's flooding. And you can see, it's hard to see in the photographs, but there's the parking lot is behind their property as well. This is going north on Temperance from 89, and this is 87. And then this is 83 Temperance. And I'm in a parking lot which is even further down, further north on Temperance. That's my truck that I had parked over there during one of the rainstorms. And you can see the water all the way up the side of the house, all the way into another parking lot.
That's my front yard.
Yeah, Len's front yard. That's his front yard. And in the next one as well. There you go. And that's his front yard. And this is the flooding we're getting now. Right now, behind the other property, there's the buffer, and there is some land. And the water goes into that with more concrete. And because it's a hill, the hill slopes down from Yonge Street towards Temperance in the creek. And the water just runs off like Niagara Falls. And to do it more and more, the residents on Temperance, it's destroying their backyards. I'm for development, and I'm for people developing and having a business and making money. There's no question about that, but we still have to look at the big picture and make sure the environment is protected. And it was registered environmentally protected for a reason. Okay.
thank you very much. Okay, we'll hear all the comments, and then if the committee has any questions, we'll call any of you back up and/or the applicant for clarity. Someone else who'd like to speak now, please. Great, name and address.
Len Bizant, 79 Temperance Street. And I have to be honest, the flooding does concern me. It says Joe there, his property at 15136. That is, his water does flow right now down just into my backyard. There's no deflection to take it to a storm sewer. And his other parking lot at 15132, as Judy says, it has a direct flow right down into the backyard of 83 Temperance, also my yard, 79 Temperance Street. So that's basically all I have to say. If that could be just fixed or whatever, it'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Please come forward.
Okay, my name is Stephen. I'm a resident at 87 Temperance. I spoke with Lake Simcoe Conservatory, LSPP protection as well. Their concern was just the 3 parking lot on the part of the parking lot there, so they are not allowing overnight parking for 3 spots only. There's the reason is because of already mentioned the flood and the environmental protection area. So that is my concern. Another area of concern would be if the parking is not readily available there, then there's overflow of other parking that necessarily be done would be surrounding areas of commercial areas and residential areas will be influenced negatively there. So those are the main concerns.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public that would like to address this application?
Can I say something that has nothing to do with this as well? With this?
Okay. Generally, it's,
Yes. Len
Okay.
was just- yeah, I'm not sure if it has been passed or not. Len was mentioning to me, there's a, is it called, sorry, I think it's called a right-of-way between 83 Temperance and 87 Temperance. There's a right-of-way that that this building owns as well. They own that property. You can see it on the one page. There's a skinny little strip that goes to Temperance Street.
okay, actually, my vice chair has indicated to me that he is aware of that and has questions on that same issue.
Do you have questions?
So maybe we'll, if you allow the committee to get into some
Okay, yeah, 'cause
discussion.
I'm not sure what's going on with
But
that.
I will, we will invite you back if we don't get the clarity we need between the committee and staff.
Okay,
All
thank you
right?
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So any other members of the public at this time? Okay, all right, then I am going to open it up to the committee for comments and questions.
There we go. Can I get you to come back? Ask staff to put the site plan up if you don't mind. If I can get a copy of the site plan put up, that would be great. Yeah, and if we could just zoom into that the overall plan there next to the key plan, that would be great. Yeah, okay, right there. Yeah. Can you help me understand? You've got a proposed building and then there's an existing building, am I correct?
Yes.
Has the parking calculation been done based on just what is about to be built, or is it based on those two buildings?
I don't understand your question.
So the building, the proposed building, okay, show me where your parking is on your site plan there.
It's on
What-
the front, the side, and all the back. The front of the building, the side of the building, the back of the building. That's where the parking is. Where? Parking is here, 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 and here.
All right, so the dark area is the proposed building.
All the lines is where the parking is.
Okay, so the dark area is the proposed three-story building.
Yes,
What is the white block next to it?
that's the existing building.
And that existing building is staying?
Yes.
So the parking variance that you're asking for, how does it affect the existing building? And, or maybe I should ask it this way. Is there existing parking for the existing building? And if so, where is it?
There is existing parking. And it is here, 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 and here.
So, if I understand you correctly, now let me ask staff. So, the variance that we're looking at this evening, is it exclusively for the new building? Because if he's got existing parking and he's counting that existing parking that applies to the existing building, I'm having a hard time understanding what additional parking is being added for the new building.
Through the chair, my understanding is that the variance is for parking on both the new and existing buildings. There looks like the new parking is partly behind the new building, and existing parking is also being used. The new zoning bylaw and the promenade policies in the official plan do have a lower parking standard than what you see in the now it's the old zoning bylaw, this is being the variances to the old zoning bylaw because of what.
Sorry, I think I may have blocked you out there, sorry.
Okay. But yes, it is the new and existing, and that the new parking rate under both the new zoning bylaw and the promenade standards are a lower rate than what is in the existing, the old zoning bylaw and what's being varied.
So through the chair, have we looked at what the variance would have been under the new? Would there have been a variance?
Through the chair, that calculation hasn't been done by the building division. They were looking at that, and then when basically we had a legal opinion on whether or not we need to be looking at the old zoning bylaw or the new one. When it was determined that the old bylaw is what was relevant to this application, then the calculation was done based on the old bylaw rather than the new bylaw. But in general, for new non-residential development, the parking rate is 1 space per 100 square meters of gross floor area, which compared to 4.5 per 100 square meters in the old zoning bylaw. And for residential, it's one per unit, and in the old bylaw, it's 1.5 per unit. So it is a lower rate.
Can I answer that?
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment, though, Marty. In the past, we have been provided the standards under the old bylaw and under the new promenade plan so that we could do a little bit of a reasonable comparison on what the future is planned to look like, appreciating that we are giving a variance under an old bylaw, but I do know across the road on an application, we were given both numbers. So that would have been helpful. So just make sure I understand the math of it all, if we were under the new, we would be looking for only 25% of the parking that is required under the old bylaw for the commercial and about 50% less than what is required. Am I doing that math right?
That sounds right, and that is just for the new building.
Yes.
The numbers for the old building or the existing building are what aren't quite clear. That's what part of the calculation wasn't done by the building division. And to your point about the new parking rates, we do have those in the official plan and the promenade policies of the official plan. But what I'm referring to is the new zoning bylaw.
Yes.
To determine whether or not there would be a variance required under the new zoning bylaw.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Sure. And now if you have some comments,
Just in reference to what was about the parking issue, in my understanding, because now I am joining these two lots and they are going to be one, they have to merge as one property. In that case, I have to go under a totally new site plan and come up to all the parking requirements. To my understanding, the parking requirements for this building are 24. I have 25 under the new parking study that was done, and to my understanding, it hasn't been implemented yet. If it was implemented, I wouldn't need a minor variance for that because I have 25. I have 24 as required, and I have 25.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yes.
And
sorry to interrupt. The number is 24. I don't know why Marty is not clear on that. I've asked that question 3 years ago when I first started this process. and they were not able, the town was not able to give me an answer because they said that the parking study wasn't finished yet. And I said, okay, fine.
That's fair.
Okay, so now the parking study is finished, and as far as I know, the number is 24.
So, and I guess I'm going to just piggyback on through the chair and what the chair has just mentioned. It may be a moot point going forward because I see on my desk here, or on the desk here, I have a copy of the new zoning bylaw, and I'm sure that this parking standards that are in there today are not the same as the ones that we are looking at with the old zoning bylaw and these applications. Can we then talk about, or not talk about, but can you enlighten me a little bit here? Use the site plan or any other plan that you might have that helps residents as well as myself understand. Access to the parking that I see from Yonge Street is shared, and it looks like you have some kind of, I don't know if you own the property or what the story is on it, but that you've got some kind of access out to Temperance. Can you walk me through what that is?
The entrance for the parking is from Yonge Street, as you can see there. That property, that portion of property, I own it. But the dentist and I have a variance, or a easement, sorry. We have an easement on that property, on that portion. So that is from Yonge Street. Regarding the land on Temperance, it's
Sorry,
about...
when you point like that, we don't
Yeah,
know what
okay.
you're pointing at. You need to point down there.
Here is the entrance on Yonge Street. This dark line. This is the dentist. This is me. And we have an easement that we can both, this property and this property, can come in through Yonge Street, and our clients can either park here, or my clients can park here, her clients park at the back. And that's, okay, now for... Yeah,
Sorry,
the property...
we can't hear when you speak from there, so I need
The-
to have order. You have to come forward, use the mic. Thank you.
He was saying about, for me to explain about Temperance and the property. So that strip of land, if I, from my recollection, I think it's 17 feet wide. I own that land. I have three properties on Temperance have an easement that they could drive on there if there ever was a proper driveway, or they could walk through it. They have an easement.
So in that easement, is it specifically for non-vehicles?
It's for
Or
vehicles or pedestrians, whatever. It's an extension of the road. Now, I haven't put a culvert there. I haven't built on it. I haven't done anything with it.
Right.
The fire department, so that you know, has requested, or they thought it was a good idea if I did put a culvert there and the road, so that if there ever was a fire, they would have access to come in through Yonge Street and come out through Temperance. I'm just putting that out there. But as of right now, I own that.
And there's nothing there?
No, I've left it.
Okay, thank you. All right, the two residents that spoke, that's great, thank you very much, Mr. Carr. Can I get, or the three of you, just show me on this plan where you're located, where your home is?
My property is right here, and this is all right now part of our lawn, and there's a tree right here,
Right.
and there's a stream running along, creek running along here as well, which has been causing flood around the whole yard here. So this is a whole flood zone. This is all EP zone according to the regs. So
Okay.
Sorry, just before you leave, I need you to just slow your finger down a minute for me there. So you're pointing to the actual part that this gentleman says he owns, and you're calling it your front yard. Where does your lot line end?
We don't own the clear line, but they're
It's right there, the clear line.
right, this small narrow square line here is
Yeah, but that's that's what this gentleman owns. That long square there is what he owns. And your house is which one of those two on
It's the
there?
one to the south.
That's your house there, okay.
my parking lot is right here.
All right,
Right beside it is grass. It's all lawn.
but that's his land. So yours ends where the dark line, yes, where your finger is now, your property ends and his
Right there.
begins. Am I correct? Okay.
Okay. And
Thank
just
you.
show me again, just roughly. No, it's okay. Just show me the direction and how far up that stream goes.
Oh, this creek
Creek.
runs along like this way, and
Does it go between the two homes?
all across the temperance
Okay.
below that. So, and this is another neighbor, right? This neighbor has been affected hugely, and this neighbor as well.
Okay. Thank you. Can I get, is it is it Sherman? Yes. Yeah. Can I get you to?
I'm next door to.
So are you south of?
I'm south,
Okay.
so I'm.
You're just off of that. You're
Yeah,
where
I'm just-
site plan is.
I'm just off the page, so Stephen is where he just showed you.
Right.
And my house is next to his, just south.
Okay.
And
So
Len,
where the word site plan is would be down towards where
Towards
your
where you
house
are.
is.
where it says site plan, where the word
Thank
site
you.
plan is, I guess. yeah.
Yes.
And that
okay.
area down there, it floods a much bigger area if I understood your photographs. Am I correct?
Yes, would you like to see them again?
That's okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to sort of situate myself there.
Yeah, the creek runs through all our backyards
Okay.
and and Len's front yard. Do you want
Okay.
to show
So
him where you live?
yeah, Len, are you the other one there?
Yeah, Len's the other one.
So actually, I'm interested. Len, can you come up again for me, please? All right.
This is his page.
Okay.
So, Len, my question to you through the chair, I also need to know where your driveway is.
I don't have a driveway. I am
That's
right-
that's
I-
why I was confused.
I'm the guy without a driveway. I'm coming here one day so I can maybe get a driveway put in my front lawn, but
Okay.
I just don't have a driveway.
So, you're to the north there, and yeah, is that your house? Sort of half of your house there? Yeah. Now, how do you get to the front door? Do you have to? Is there a way?
Nope, the creek actually, you know.
Right.
And no, I have an allowed parking spot with J. Roll. The house has been there for quite some time, and when we built that new building beside 15136 to the north side of it, when we built that parking lot, they allowed one parking spot for me.
Yeah.
So the person then that owns the house, and I'm sorry we're jumping back and forth, but this is great. Just to the north of this gentleman's land, that person's not here. Would that be correct? Not that that matters, I'm just trying to get my bearings here.
Just to the north of Joe's?
To the south of you.
To the south of me, yeah, no, that would be Hansberger?
Okay,
Oh, George and Marie, yeah,
That one.
83, no, that's, yeah, I can't remember.
okay, so they're not here, those
No,
people?
she's not.
Okay, so that's what so we've got here, 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 and not here, okay.
Can I just say something about the parking situation? I see a three-story building, and I see 4 parking spots, or is it 5 for a three-story building? Is that, I just don't really understand that.
Well, he's telling you that he's got 25 parking spots total for the two buildings.
His parking works very well for the business that he's operating now. I love downtown businesses. He's a nice guy. But actually, that parking works well for that building. He's building a new building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or he would like to.
Pardon? I wouldn't mind it at all. But I just like appropriate parking for the appropriate sized building personally.
Right.
All right, we've
Thank
got
you.
that. Tom, carry on if you have any.
I was just going to ask, Mr. Kara, so you mentioned that you own a number of properties on Temperance. None of them are adjacent to this property?
No, I don't own any properties on
Oh, I
Temperance.
thought you mentioned you did. I'm sorry.
I own that strip of land that backs onto Temperance.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, thank you. That's great. Yeah, I think I've got it now. Thank you.
Okay, all right, David, your turn.
So the chair, thanks. You have answered many of my questions. Yeah. So for me, just clarification. Unfortunately, we don't have any drawing or map showing the extent of the like flood hazard area or flood hazard limit. We don't have, unfortunately. Do you mind from historically, how far does flooding go on your property? If you just show with a pen somehow the extent of flooding.
In my opinion, I have found out that it's been over 67 years that creek has overflowed, and they don't even know how much it overflowed and when it overflowed. That's number one. Number two, I appreciate their concerns, and I am addressing their concerns. Right now, the water is just flowing. With the proper catch basins and all of the requirements of the site plan, it's going to control the water. They should be, that's a good thing, in my opinion. So I am helping the situation. I'm not making it worse. I'm helping. The other thing is, when there is a slope to land, and you start up here, and you happen to own a house at the bottom of the hill, it doesn't matter what you do to it, it's going to flood. Maybe they shouldn't have bought there. I don't know. I'm just saying, if they're concerned about flooding, that's a real issue, but not because I am building another building is that going to create more flooding. It's actually going to make it better because of the controls and the catch basins and all the water requirements that we're putting in.
Okay.
Anyway, you haven't answered my question anyways.
What was your question?
But I understand what you are saying.
Yeah.
My question is, can you show on this map the extent of flooding? Like, if you show us historically, how far has the flooding gone into your property?
I've never seen any flooding on my property.
So
there is no flooding on my property.
So so how are you going to address Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority comments? Like, let's say the first, if you look at the, if let's say we recommend this, if you look at their conditions, the number one bullet point, first bullet point, and A, they want you to show flood hazard limit within your property. My understanding is,
if I'm understanding your question, the way you want me to explain to you the way the water will be controlled?
No.
Okay.
Show me historically, from the way you know your property, how far has water ponded on your property?
On my property, there is no flooding on my property.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to jump in, I think, because I'm going to ask this question in a different way, and it might help you.
There's a reason why I'm asking this question.
Yes, I'm sure, yeah. First of all, I just want to comment that both conditions A and C call it a floor hazard. I'm presuming I read this as flood hazard.
Should be flood hazard.
That's to staff, yes?
Yeah, it should be flood hazard.
I see nodding, so I'll correct the report so that our conditions, if we agree with them, will be clear. One of the variances requested speaks very specifically to the buffer lands. What I need to see on there is where the Lake Simcoe, sorry, just bear with me for half a second.
I can show you. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, do you? So
right here.
it's where, okay. And that's where the landscapes buffer would go, and you're asking for a variance to not put it there.
Under normal conditions, when you have the, space or whatever,
Right.
there is a requirement to have
Okay.
a buffer zone.
So stop for a second. So if that buffer zone was there, and this is a question to staff, please, would that be of any benefit to the flooding that is occurring behind it? And if not, then what is the purpose of that buffer? Is it strictly aesthetic? I'd like to understand the purpose of why the bylaw requires a buffer there before we even think about, and is it anything to do with the flooding that David's asking about that might creep up onto this property?
The buffer is essentially as a screen or visual buffer between residential and non-residential properties. It's not there for flooding, for floodplain purposes. And I may be able to provide a bit of information on where the flood line is. The flood line, I don't have a map here, but it's approximately between the two rows of parking in the rear parking lot in the aisle, and about 7.5 or so of the parking spaces would be within the flood line.
Okay.
Explaining.
So on the back of
Sorry, I
that,
couldn't stand
so that strip of parking down across the very back, you'll need to go, Marty, please, for me, visual, as you know. Is it? All right. So, show me. All right.
These parking spaces.
They are within York Region's definition of the flood zone.
The
Conservation, okay. And so the buffer strip there would not help with that? I mean, anything green does absorb water a lot better than pavement. Not that that's going to benefit the residents, so I'm not going there, but I'm wondering, would that not prevent maybe the flooding of those parking spots on this gentleman's property if it was there?
Madam Chair, in general, when you have pervious soil, it does help with absorbing stormwater. I'm not an engineer, so I can't really speak to any more specifically about that. If any distance away from the flood line would make the parking spots more, I guess, out of the flood line. But this has been reviewed by the Conservation Authority as well as municipal staff, and the site plan has been reviewed as well, not just the minor variances. And the site plan has been approved by council in May, so that that was reviewed by staff and Conservation Authority staff as well.
Great, that's helpful, thank you. Now, I did see a hand in the back, so are you a member of the public that wants to speak to this? Yes. Then please come forward, sir. We'll need your full name and address.
Yeah, my name is Herman Ramirez. I am in 15124 on John Street. And probably to clarify a little bit, it's important to know the topography of this land. We have a hill. I am the owner on the south side.
Okay, I was just going to say, before we go too far, so what he referred to as the dentist office?
Yes, I am the
That's your
dentist
piece of
office.
property, so
I am
down.
the property on the south.
Thank you, so at least
All
we know
right?
what you're referring to, thank you.
So we don't have any issue with the flooding because this is a hill coming from John Street to Temperance Street. So whenever the creek is flooding to the west. It's not coming to our property. That's the clarification because the topography of the land.
Thank you, appreciate that, yep. Yes, absolutely, guys.
I still have questions.
David,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry, I didn't
I know you came to make questions. Yeah. Anyway, so the reason I was asking about the hazard limit, thanks to the planners actually explained, because there's no way Lake Simcoe Conservation will comment on something asking you to put a flood hazard limit on your drawing when actually they're not expecting anything. So I was very, very suspicious and was very worried when you say, there's no flooding or there's no, flood limit going to your property. But anyway, now I've got the answer. Now, the reason I was asking that, and of course, you're going to address this Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. Let's say if you approve this, you're going to provide them a site plan showing those limits, whatever they're showing here, to have this condition addressed. My question related to this is, on your third application, this is application MV 2017-23C, you are talking about visitors parking, you're also talking about the residential parking, okay? And you have 25 parking spaces. Can you tell us, or maybe staff, which are on this plan regarded as visitors parking, which overnight will not be, nobody who's a resident will be expected to park there?
Lake Conservation has already approved this plan.
Yeah, but I'm asking you,
I'm gonna
if you can show on this plan, which are visitors parking spaces and which are for the residents who will be staying and sleeping in the houses. Their cars will still be outside.
We haven't dedicated spot, it's whatever's open. So there's the 25 spots. Usually the front would be for visitors, and the side and the back would be for residents.
Okay, now I have a problem here now. So, Conservation Authority condition B, first bullet point at number B, you are supposed to show signs indicating no overnight parking.
Right.
And then you are saying, the way from, correct me if I'm wrong, from what you are saying, it's being implied that the residents will be parking at the back.
I have to,
the hazard area.
Lake Simcoe has requested that I put a sign that says no overnight parking on the back parking spots. That is correct.
Okay,
it has to do with a liability issue.
Yes, I understand.
And this is where those parking spots will be indicated, no parking.
Okay.
Right at the back.
Another question now. For the residents, how many parking spots do you think from your land use to be assigned for residents? The reason I'm asking this question is you have to remove these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have to remove 7 parking spaces. In other words, the remaining 25 minus 7, which is 18, has to be for the residents. So the question I would say, do you have 18 spaces for the residents? Or are they enough or not enough?
Yeah, I have enough. They would be here.
Okay. And all this. Okay. So how many residents? How many units?
Well, there's 25 minus the 7, so there would be 18
No,
spots.
not parking units. How many residential units,
12.
please? 12.
Okay, so 12. So about
and you're assuming that they have cars.
Yes, of course. That's what I'm assuming.
These are all one-bedroom apartments, and I've done other projects in Aurora. And out of 15 apartments, only 2. This was part of the parking study that we did for One Bell Drive. Only 2 people have parking spots, but they have to.
You
still
know,
be
I
there.
understand. That's why I'm
Except
asking.
that our bylaws, even the new ones, do require 1 per
Yep.
residential
Yes,
unit.
yes.
So I think that's.
Yeah, I'm
that's our
asking
point.
this just to get clarification.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we just have to do the math
You
and
have to.
understand what we're
Thank you.
approving.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I think I'm okay.
You think you're good now?
Yeah.
Your questions? All right. Yeah, and then again, and you are aware of the conditions that have been put on here, which are that the owner does have to do a site plan to Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, identify that flood hazard limit that we talked about, admittedly on the east side, which is not what the residents' concerns are, the location of the signs for no overnight parking, so you're going to do that. and the location of suitable bearings on the perimeter of the parking area within the flood hazard limit. So that was my question. How can this be? So if we were to grant the variance that they don't have to, that he does not need that green buffer on the backside of the 7 spots that could flood, then where would these plantings or bollards go within the flood hazard limit? I can't see that we can say, yes, you don't need that green space, and conservation is saying, but you have to put the plantings in there. I don't know where they would go if that green space was eliminated. Can staff help me with, to me it appears slightly contradictory.
Chair, you're referring to the Conservation Authority's comments for the suitable barriers, natural plantings, bollards for the perimeter of the parking area. The site plan has everything on it that would, like where the parking spots would be, the circulation, all the landscaping. That was all incorporated into the site plan. I don't have the landscape plan with me, so I don't have anything that says where there would be barriers or anything for that. That's basically what the comments from the Conservation Authority are saying, where there might be suitable barriers. It's not necessarily requiring them. It's something that would be signed off by the Conservation Authority. Not having the site plan and landscape plan with me, I don't know what went to, which drawings were looked at by council for what they have in respect for anything for a barrier for parking.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, but the condition doesn't seem to be optional. The condition says to identify the location of suitable barriers, natural plantings or bollards on the perimeter of the parking area within the flood hazard limit. So I see that the flood hazard limit, if what we've been told so far, and I can go to the map if you wish, but it seems to be the area of the 7 back parking spots. Am I correct about that?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and directly behind that is my understanding where the buffer should be that we're being asked on one of the variances to forgive. So I don't see where these can go, and the wording of this condition says they have to be there. I don't see there's an option there, Marty. So am I misreading this? Please.
If I may, through the chair. In my past experience, what the Conservation Authority might be looking at would be where there is a potential for flooding, to the best of anyone's ability. There may end up being 4 bollards across the back at the 4 corners of those 7 spaces. The owner, upon notification, may have to run a chain that effectively renders those 7 spaces inaccessible in the event of a flood. And if that's the case, then obviously the owners or the tenants in that building that would be there overnight would be looking at the other 18 spaces on site for overnight parking until either the flood subsides or until notification is received. Oh, you're not?
I'm not talking about the flooding. I got that. I understand
Okay.
they don't want them to park there. I'm talking about number 3, C. So number C says, oh, and could you define for me what a bollard is?
It's just a round, it could be just a concrete, you know where you see around truck parking? So it's painted yellow, and they're about 6 inches in diameter. They're typically steel, and they're filled with concrete.
Okay, so, all right, I'm reading this as natural plantings, meaning they need dirt and green space to grow. I guess okay, so if it's just strictly some columns that marks this specific area, that's different. So I apologize, that's my misunderstanding of what the word bollard was. I had in my head we were needing to plant something green there to maybe absorb some of that water or something, and then on the other one, we were going to let that go, so.
I see the applicant shaking his head yes.
So now okay, then I do apologize. We are lay people, so it takes a minute for me. Blonde hair, what can I tell you? Okay. Now, so if you could come back again, I just want to ask about this little strip of land now that goes down to Temperance Street. This has got to be the oddest shaped lot I've ever come across.
I agree.
Yeah, so what is the plan for that? Because that directly affects the residents here tonight.
Right now, there is no plan.
There is, right now, there is no plan.
I've been very nice and letting people park there for free, cleaning up the trees for free, you know. I've been very nice, and there is no plan.
Well, just say you're a good neighbor.
Yes, I'm a very good neighbor.
Okay. Staff, could anything occur on that strip of land without something coming back before this committee or council? To the best of your knowledge, I just need to know. I don't want these people to wake up some morning and have a big paved driveway straight down there or something. I need some comfort level there.
I'm not sure about anything. That's a pretty broad question. Any buildings that would require a building permit or anything like that would have to go for the proper permits for that. But it's hard to.
Add through my experience, I can understand what he's saying. There are a lot of properties within York region where you have this good explanation which you gave, and thank you for saying that. It's for fire access. Usually when you have things like that, it's usually good for fire purposes to have an area like that. So I would say that area will not be blocked. If at all, if you listen, they are not wishing to have access, there will be just a chain just to be opened. If they don't want any access, let's say access by public or any other cars, so that it's only used for fire. They'll have maybe a chain link.
Just so you know, years ago, there was rocks along there, and people used to walk from Temperance all the way up there. It's too bad that that gentleman left, because he's the one that told me that. When he was a kid, he used to walk all along there, and people were walking. So.
It's not wide enough for a car, by the way. Sorry, it's not wide enough for a car. There's trees all the way along.
All right, thank you. Okay, so one more question for me then. How much today is not paved on your site that would be paved if approved?
It's all paved except for the new portion of the building.
So where I have an aerial photograph that you're not seeing, but where it looks like a lot of brown dirt, some of that would end up being paved that's not paved today.
Okay, hold on. My property is all paved. The existing property, the front, the side, the back is all paved. It has been. It was when I bought it.
Yes, I can see that.
The only part that is not paved is directly behind the new building.
Okay. Okay, you can't do that. Shout out from your seat. Thank you. Okay, so on the basically what we'll call the new lot, new building lot, the back end of it is currently not paved.
Yes.
So water that may be absorbed there may in future run off to the west to Temperance Street.
I disagree with that because of the catch basins and everything else. The water is going to be funneled properly, where now it isn't.
It runs off the dirt once the dirt's absorbed all it can. Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I mean, yeah, I think been a lot of questions. Thank you for your patience. Further comments? Okay, I'll allow one more, like a closing remark, I guess, and then I'm going to just give this over to the committee for them. Thank you.
Just additional information on the property where the driveway will be.
Thank you for that. Yeah. One more to the microphone, and thank you, and then we'll be done.
I know this gentleman's saying he's a good neighbor and he's been treating everybody well, but that strip of property he doesn't look after. It's the neighbors on Temperance that clean it up and trim his trees and do everything. He doesn't do that. He never steps foot there. So
Thank
it's
you.
the neighbors that do that.
Appreciate it. We
Okay.
don't give that much weight anyway, so
Okay.
thank you for that.
And just the history of the flooding, I've been there, like I said, 18 years. Over the last couple of years, 3-4 years, since the growth, and I understand towns grow, but the flooding is now just when it rains. When it used to be once every 4 years, 5 years, now every time it rains, it floods.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was just conferring with the committee. Sometimes we break up recommendations when there's 4 or 5, and we will call the vote separately just to make sure that all committee members are able to vote the way they feel. So I've just conferred with my colleagues that letting them know that that's an option if they wish. So one of them will make the motion. I don't as the chair. So if they choose to do that, I just wanted you to understand that all I did was just let them know that that is an option that is open to them. Most of the time things go forward as a package. Occasionally they get called separately, and I was just reminding them of that. So then if there are no further comments, questions required from the committee, I'll look to one of you to call a motion, please.
Through the chair, I move that the 4 applications be approved, subject to conditions as suggested in the staff's report, with some just minor corrections to the Lex Simcoe conditions. First bullet point A, the word floor should be flood. And also number C, the word floor should be flood. That's at the end there, should be flood hazard limit. I think that's it.
And do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'm going to second the motion, and I'm going to second it by saying that the comments that were made by the public address, I think, a greater issue in terms of your concerns about flooding. I believe that this development will, in actual fact, have to deal with some of the rainwater that is coming, and it will be channeled as opposed to continuing to drop into that area. And I'm also going to second it as well on the basis that I think the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority conditions can be satisfied because he has 12 units in the building and can provide safe parking, I believe, for those 12 units, even with the potential flood limit, even going a little higher than it is. So I will second the motion on that basis.
Okay, so we do have a motion then moved and seconded. All in favor?
Do you want to break it up?
No, go ahead.
You're okay.
You go ahead. If you're in favor, opposed? It carries.
But I think if the new standards are
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on. I know we have, we're going to move on to the next applicant's application now. If you're welcome to go outside if you want to have a discussion. Thank you. We have minor variance application Tadros Hannah, 46 Tyler Street. Thank you for your patience. Purpose of application 2017-23A. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended, respecting to allow a reduction in front yard setback to construct a one-story addition with attached garage. The property in question is in a detached dwelling second density residential R2 zone. Section 11.2.2 of the zoning bylaw requires minimum front yard setback of 6 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a one-story addition with attached garage, which is 5.7 meters to the front line, requiring a variance of 0.3 meters. Application 2017-23B is seeking relief from the same zoning bylaw, respecting to allow a reduction in minimum distance separation for steps encroachments to construct the one-story addition. Section 6.48.1 of the zoning bylaw states encroachments for steps shall be subject to a minimum distance separation of 2.1 meters from the exterior side property line. The applicant is proposing to construct steps which are 0.8 meters from the exterior side property line, requiring a variance of 1.3 meters. 23C, same bylaw, looking for an exemption to increase the maximum lot coverage to construct the one-story addition with attached garage. Section 11.2.3 of the zoning bylaw requires a maximum lot coverage of 35%. The applicant is proposing to construct a one-story addition with attached garage with a total lot coverage of 35.3%, thus requiring a variance of 0.3. Planning Services had no objections, however, they do have a condition. Building Services, no comments. Environmental and Infrastructure Services, no objections, subject to conditions. Parks, Rec, and Culture, no objections, subject to conditions. Central York Fire and Electra Utilities, as well as the Region of York, had no objections. Heritage Planning and Building Services had no objections, but there was supplementary information provided. And Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority had no objections, subject to conditions. Can we have the applicant or the agent to come forward, please? If you like. Please just give us your full names.
I'm Marina Hanna.
Andrew Tadros.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify with you, there are a number of conditions. Our report is quite detailed. Without going through them all, we'd like to have your agreement that you've read them, you understand them, and you are in agreement with them.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Then I don't see any members of the public that would like to speak to this application. So I'll turn it over to the committee for any questions. Unless you want to make any kind of a presentation. Sorry.
We're
okay.
good.
My apologies. Any questions or comments, Tom?
Yeah, I'll just make a couple of comments. This is actually quite refreshing to actually be dealing with variances that seem to be minor in nature. Most of the things that come before this committee are a little bit more than minor in my opinion, and these actually seemed quite minor, and I think to drive that point even further, I drove by, and you've got a rather unique situation on that property because the topography is a bit of a challenge. Number one, the concern that I had, and I wanted to ask you this, the front of your existing building now lines up real nice with the property to the north, and it also continues the next property forward, so continuing to go up. Your three homes line up. It isn't until you hit the fourth one there's that little addition or entryway on that one. Have you spoken to or have your neighbors, you've got a sign there obviously, but have your neighbors come forward? Have you talked to them about what you want to do, and have you had any reaction from them at all?
So, yes, I spoke to a neighbor directly north of us.
Right.
They were actually also considering a similar project with an attached garage, but then they listed their property for sale. So I believe that was the issue for them. But when I mentioned it to them, he was actually very strongly approving that we would do something with an attached garage.
Did they sell?
No, they did not.
So they're thinking about selling?
They took it off the market.
So they're still there?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
And so if they were concerned, I would assume they would be here?
Correct.
Or would have contacted staff. And I'll ask that, was there any comments or anything from?
Through the chair, no, there was not.
I guess that's it for me. I'm fine.
David?
It's actually not related to the applicant, but to the staff. Only the supplementary information about heritage planning, no objection, but they'll provide further comment on exterior. Does it mean there will be a site plan application, or there is a site plan application and the heritage is going to further comment on that? What does this mean?
Through the chair, there won't be a site plan application. There isn't one required for this. It will be going to the Heritage Advisory Committee, and that's, I believe, next week. Yep. And also the condition was that the plans get reviewed by Heritage staff for comment. So that's where potentially further comment would come from.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, David. Thank you very much. I'll look for a motion.
I'll make the motion through the chair. Move that minor variance application 2017-24A through C be approved with conditions as noted, subject to comments from Heritage Committee following the meeting on the 17th.
David? Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? That carries. Thanks very much for your patience. All right. So I'll just look to members of the committee for any new business.
For me, just see...
Push a button.
Through the chair, you are the memorandum where you delisted some of the items there. Maybe if we just, some of them maybe just clarify a little bit.
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, I was gonna describe some of that just now. In regards to the last meeting, we had the committee had asked me to look into a deferral request. So I did do some research, and I think that the practice is that the applicant makes a request for deferral, and then the committee would then choose whether to accept that or not. So usually it would be preferable that the applicant be present. So I think moving forward, that would be the process, the proper process with regards to that.
Does that in any way impede what we have done upon occasion, is if the committee is uncomfortable with part of an application or even all of it, but we think it's something that can be resolved with staff, we have suggested to applicants that they may wish to defer. That doesn't stop us from doing that, does it? Because I think that can be helpful to applicants that may have just some minor things we're not comfortable with. So we'll be able to continue to, but as you say, the request will come from them, but it doesn't matter whether we may or may not suggest that.
Through the chair, I don't believe that would be an issue. I mean, that is within the power of the committee, either approve, not approve, or defer an application.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think the other, and if I miss anything, the other one that I was going to mention, and I believe you're now aware, is that the town has passed a new zoning bylaw just around late June by council. So now it's called bylaw 60000-17, and it's currently under an appeal period for the next month or so, and we'll have to see if there is any appeals or not. However, this new bylaw will be the one that will be in force in effect. And in addition, and you may be aware that now with the new provincial requirements, once you pass a new zoning bylaw, there is what's effectively a 2-year freeze on any rezoning or minor variance applications, unless council allows them to proceed. Council has stated that minor variance applications can continue to be accepted by us and processed. They would just be rezoning applications that would require council approval.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I know we have 2 applications that were previously deferred that you make reference to that may be returning later on. If they do come back, will they come back to us then under the old bylaw, or would they come back under the new bylaw since they had actually been deferred? Would that clergy principle apply to them or not?
Through the chair, I may have to look in. I think that since they did come in under that old bylaw, I believe it may still be under effect there. However, building department did do a new preliminary zoning review for those deferred applications, and they found that the variance request would be the same as the previous request. So substantively, they wouldn't be affected. And of course, on your desk, I've provided you copies of the new zoning bylaw. And if there's any more information or more orientation towards that for the committee, I'll let you know in future.
Then one further question. Do you currently have within the planning department any applications that have been submitted under the old bylaw that we have not yet heard, other than these 2 that were deferred?
Through the chair, no, it'd only be those 3 applications, the Center Street application and the 2 from Henderson Drive. Yeah.
Okay, so anything after that now will come forward under the new bylaw, and you'll make that clear in the staff reports. Thank you, and I think...
I was just going to add, so Justin, if we end up with a number of... Well, you could end up with a number of appeals to the OMB on this, and I guess you'll be looking to the board to make a decision on whether parts of the bylaw can be brought into effect where it's minor and applies to specific areas and what have you. The board may, as you know, may say, okay, well, we'll allow everything else to move forward and hold back. Or if it is a general principle and it's appealed, then you may be looking at taking applications forward under the old bylaw until the board's decision and then further appeal. That whole process can be quite lengthy. If in fact, so I would expect that any new applications that are coming in will be, it'll be clear as to what regulation they're coming forward under, I would assume, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. We'll have to see once. Of course, the other new requirement from the province is that you cannot do what's called a global appeal. You can't appeal the entire zoning bylaw now. You can only appeal portions of it. So that will eliminate those type of appeals that would put more of an issue on the entirety of the zoning bylaw.
So I guess my final comment then might be that should staff feel that this committee might benefit from any kind of a training session of any kind on the new bylaw, we'd appreciate that recommendation if you thought it might be helpful. If there's anything in there that would be brand new to us or something that we should be learning, we'd appreciate the opportunity to have possibly a training session if you think we could benefit from that. And so other than that, if there's nothing further, I'll ask if we can have a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.